you guys in my gun.
Smile. If you need water, just let me know. Plenty.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to both in person and on our live stream for the PCDO Gubernatorial Democratic Candidate Forum. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Jeffrey Oakman, President of PCDO for 2025. I want to thank everybody who's helped bring this event together and thank our incredibly strong group of candidates, including Senator John McKeon here who's representing Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill tonight. Thanks also to all the elected officials, public servants, military, and veterans in the room for your service to our country. You may have noticed that we're sending out more action alerts from PCDO and opportunities to protest Trump and Musk's destruction of the federal government. We plan to continue to do so as long as this goes on, so please sign up for our mailing list. Today we're focused on the critical question of who will lead our state as governor and how they will ensure that our government continues to reflect our democratic values in these troubling times. But first, I want to remind everyone that we also have a critical election in LD 16 this year. Our Assembly Rep Roy Fryman is here, and Michelle Drulis, her petition is also here. They've got their petitions, so please sign those. This is fair warning that we will be reaching out to you about our elections work and campaign, get out the vote in the coming months, so you'll hear more on that. And finally, before we begin tonight, I'd like to welcome Mayor Janice Mirnoff, our Mercer County Democratic Chair, to say a few words. Janice has been a strong leader in Mercer and a strong ally of PCDO during her 4 years as chair in our collective efforts to keep Mercer County blue and to punch above our weight in state and national politics. And Mayor, thank you for your partnership.
Great, thank you. Absolute margin of votes for that ticket, notwithstanding our size. Just 9,000 votes behind the giant of Hudson and 5,000 behind Union, with Essex and Camden in the lead. So a lot to be proud of as Mercer County Democrats. This is a really critical year with all of the actions, despicable actions going on in Washington and impacting all of our lives every day. This election is really critical for us here in New Jersey, that we're able to come together, to work together, and to ensure that we elect a Democratic governor who will be a counter, who will be a leader for the Democratic Party, who will make sure that our party builds on that foundation for other successes here in New Jersey and nationally. So Princeton, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your partnership, to the other Democrats here as well, and Jeffrey, thank you for the opportunity here.
Here. Thank you, Janice. And now I'm going to hand it off to Mia Sachs, our council president here in Princeton, who is going to moderate tonight. Mia is not just a respected leader in Princeton, she's also known for her involvement in planning, land use, and housing issues around the state, and her advocacy for the perspective of local officials in Trenton. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you to our gubernatorial candidates and campaigns for making the time to join us in Princeton this evening. I'm going to have to get it. Okay. I need things a little shorter. And a special thanks to Jeffrey Oakman, Jean Durbin, and former PCDO Chair Nick DiDomisio for making tonight happen. Without their strenuous efforts, we would not be here tonight. We are being live streamed, and the link may be found at princetondems.org. That's princetondems.org. I also just wanted to explain, for those of you who don't know, this is not a debate, it's not an endorsement meeting, it's an informational forum, and we wanted to focus the time on giving the candidates the maximum amount of time to give you the most amount of information that you need to make an informed choice. The format of tonight's forum is as follows. Each candidate will give an opening statement of no more than 2 minutes in length, and will go in alphabetical order. We have a timekeeper in front. Please adhere to the time limits. The time team will hold up the sign right over there when you have 30 seconds left. There will be 2 minutes allotted per question and up to 6 questions for each candidate. If time permits, we'll have 1 or more questions with a 1-minute answer. Finally, we'll turn to closing statements of 2 minutes in length, and we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. Mayor Baraka, please begin with your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody coming out on this rainy and difficult day. Love to be in Princeton. Reminds me of Paul Robeson. But the reality is we saw Elon Musk in the Oval Office interviewing folk, taking interview questions and talking to international leaders as the President of the United States sat at his desk. To me, that image tells us exactly the times that we're in. Very dangerous and precarious times that we're in, which means we need a strong leader, a strong Democrat who stands on our values. Not just people who are saying they're Democrats, but are quoting and parroting Republican talking points, right? And I know at times like this, it is easy for us to hold on to the things that we're used to run to places that are more comfortable for us, to do the things that we've normally been doing to make us feel safe and secure. But the problem with that is those are the very things that have the Republicans gaining on us. Us doing the same things that we've been doing is dangerous. Us holding on to the middle space, praying and hoping somebody's gonna come back to the Democratic Party is the wrong move. Actually, we need to be leaning on our values. We need to be speaking to our base. We need to be talking to working class folks in this state and bringing people into our party and making sure that they understand that we stand on these values, that we're not running from them, that we're not apologizing for them. In fact, we should be saying them as loud as we possibly can. And the best way for us to fight Donald Trump, in my mind, is to build a democracy that works. Build a democracy that works where we lean on diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we invest in small and mid-sized businesses in the state, where we make sure we take care of the environment and we protect immigrants in our community. We stand up for the LGBTQ community. We can do these things and make sure we have a robust economy at the same time. And we don't fail, and we can make the super wealthy and the corporations pay their fair share. This is what works. It's not magic. It's actually what democracy is. It's actually what being a part of the Democratic Party is. I'm proud to be a Democrat. I'm not running from it. I'm not escaping it. I think we become Democrats now. Now is the time we draw the line in the sand and say this or that. We can't play games with these people. They're dangerous and mean-spirited. We have to fight for all working people in this state. All right.
Thank you. Good job, Press. First, let me just say thank you to the PCDO for putting this together, and it's really inspiring to have such a big turnout on a windy, rainy, windy Sunday, and your reputation precedes you as being a tough crowd, but a fair crowd and a thoughtful crowd. These are definitely dangerous times, and we need to be thinking about what New Jersey will look like for the next 4 years. My hope tonight and my belief is you're going to leave here and say, maybe he's not the best from an oratory standpoint. He speaks with the most lofty words and big platitudes. And you're going to say maybe, his campaign is structured a little differently. He doesn't have a big union behind him. I do hope to mail you, not as much as Sean, but I'll mail you. But my hope, and I haven't carved out a lane that is about the political machine because I'm unapologetic that New Jersey needs change because of that corruption tax that we all pay every single day. What I can tell you is that our campaign is different and it's in the same mold of what I did when I ran for office in 2013, when the entire political establishment was against me, and I said we were going to run a detailed, policy-focused campaign. Thorough, be honest, treat people like adults, tell them what I'm going to do, and despite the fact that every large political person in the state of New Jersey was against us, we were successful. If you spend some time on our campaign website, it's different. We've leaned into tough conversations, clear on policy, more detailed than any Democrat or Republican, because you deserve that, what we're going to change for New Jersey. You need a fighter. There is nobody in the state that has the same scars that I do, from fighting George Norcross to Bob Menendez when it was tough, And you could know that I will be unapologetic, a fighter for you, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected governor. So thank you for coming out today.
Good. Thank you all very much. First off, I apologize on behalf of the Congresswoman. Before this seminar was set, she had an obligation to one of her 4 children and needed to keep that commitment, so she will make herself available to all of you at many convenient times. Tonight just wasn't that night. So they're all teasing me because I got a bunch of notes here. It's easy. They could be them. I have to be someone else, so I need to look a little bit more.
Senator, do some.
Mike,
Oh, okay, that's good. It was a really good joke, too. All good. But I think you probably, I'm going to throw away maybe what I was going to say. I was going to go through that a kid at 18 years of age made an oath to her country. She served and graduated from the United States Naval Academy. From there, she literally was an aircraft commander relative to a squadron, which is between 12 and 24 other vehicles at a very young age. From there, a naval intelligence officer. From there, she goes to Georgetown Law School, then joins the U.S. Attorney's Office, where she specialized in prison reentry as well as community policing. She's really a very extraordinary person, to the degree of being in Congress since 2018, and so I don't mess this up, the Center for Effective Lawmaking called her the best out of our entire congressional delegation. But I'll tell you why I'm here supporting Mikey, and this is very important for me to say. I have the greatest respect to the men to my right and left, and I will enthusiastically support, and I hope all of you do too, whoever our nominee is, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'll tell you why I'm here on behalf of Mikey. And it goes back to 2017, when we all learned after a year that Donald Trump was going to have the conspiracy that he did with the right-wingers, and that we needed to do something about it. And she did. She knew that flipping Congress was what needed to happen. She didn't walk into a very easy district. She walked into a place that had Mr. Freelandheisen, who was the chair of the Appropriations Committee. His parents came over on the Mayflower, or whatever the heck it was. And ultimately, and I'm sorry, I'm out of time, she met with a community group, NJ Change for 11, and they congealed to the extent of flipping that, becoming a part of the solution, leading the fight to impeach Donald Trump twice, and then again, bringing in and ushering in 4 great years of prosperity to our party and our principles. So I think Mikey's the person that's going to be able to carry the mantle for another 8 years after the Murphy years soon end. So thank you again. Look forward to tonight.
Great, yes, thank you. And first, thank you to everybody for being here tonight. I say it as somebody who's got the 4-year-old and 7-year-old at home. I know there's always so many other things you could be doing, but yet you're finding the time to be here. And that's a testament to our democracy, right? This is how we protect it. This is the work that we do. So again, thank you for taking that time. I am Sean Spiller, and I'm running for governor because I do think this is our chance. This is our chance to do things differently. This is our chance to have somebody who's fighting for us and our issues in this seat every single day, understanding the perspective that I think so many of us share. Look, and I say that from also understanding that when the mayor talks about us watching Elon Musk, right, in that Oval Office as that puppeteer, right, controlling things, I think we have to understand the frustration that so many folks feel as well. The frustration that right here people say, well, listen, maybe they're controlled overtly, but we've got folks who have been taking Elon Musk money right here. We got folks who feel that the wealthy and the ultra powerful and the political elites control things right here. And people say, you know what? That's not for me. Who's fighting for me? Because when they're in those rooms, whose decisions are they making? Ones that impact me and benefit me and my family, or are they fighting for someone else? And I'm saying this is our chance to change that, right? This is our chance to fight for the things that matter for New Jersey residents. This is the chance to address the big cost drivers that folks are being faced with. Let's talk about the need for quality housing that's affordable in every single one of our communities. And really happy with the work that I've done in Montclair, introducing the first ever rent control law in our history to make sure we try to get that done, right? I'm happy to be saying, hey, I sit here as somebody who's helped design healthcare plans that save us billions of dollars at the state level. Somebody who's fought to make sure that in each and every one of our communities, we fight for what families need. I'm a teacher, yeah, I'm a high school science teacher, I'm a coach, yeah, I'm a labor leader who's fought to make sure folks get what they need. Yes, I'm a dad of 2 young boys who wants to make sure their future is bright and has opportunities. And I'm somebody who has said I've dedicated my career to doing this work, dedicated my career to fighting for folks like us. And if we want to change the system, if we want to have somebody who is working for us and working for our interests, we've got to elect somebody who is like us, somebody who's shown they're going to fight for us each and every day. And that's exactly what I will be as your governor.
Senator Sweeney.
Well, first, thank everyone for coming out this evening. Not the nicest of days, but great to see so many people here that care about their state. My name's Steve Sweeney. I came about this a lot different than everyone else. I'm a union iron worker. I didn't go to college. And a life experience changed me. I had a daughter born premature, 2 pounds, and she was born with Down syndrome. I didn't like the way people with disabilities were treated, because they're not treated with respect and dignity, and they're not viewed as citizens that could actually be productive and really do some wonderful things in life. The other part of my daughter's birth was we were in a neonatal unit for 75 days. I'm an iron worker, my wife's a hairdresser, I got a 4-year-old son. I got to go to work every day, walking around on steel, where my mind and my heart are with my baby. I get back, my wife then has to go to work. My son's staying in the hospital almost 24 hours a day, almost every day. So when I had the chance, we created paid family leave, because no one should have to go through that. No one should have to be someplace when they have a loved one that they're concerned about. And whether it's a child, whether it's a parent, your mind and your heart aren't where you are. They're in the hospital. So when you talk about people who've gotten things done, minimum wage, paid family leave, pay equity for women, woman's right to choose, woman's health care, long list of things that New Jersey has that other states would love to have. And I was the prime sponsor on every one of them. Thank you.
Okay, question 1 is for everyone, and that was just a warm-up. This time, I'm gonna crack down. We really have to follow the time team there and stick to our time limits, because we have a lot of questions tonight. So
I was close.
it's gonna start getting tough here. All right, question 1 is for everyone, and we'll proceed in alphabetical order. What would be the first major bill you would prioritize to get through the legislative process, and why? And what would be your first executive order, and why? Mayor Barone.
Well, ultimately, I think the first bill that I want to support is Senator Reeves' bill, her package of bills that talks about equity in healthcare, because it leads to equity in other places, right? She's talking about equities centered around women's right to choose and access to healthcare. There are people in this state, black, brown, poor people in this state, who do not have the same privilege as everybody else. It's one thing to have a state like New Jersey and say we have all of these privileges, and there's another thing around inequity that doesn't allow us to get those privileges. So that's something that I would support immediately and double down on. One of the things that I also would, in terms of the executive order, is around housing. I think it's important that the state government begin to lead around housing, begin to say we want to build housing around transit first, that we need to begin sitting with local leaders, mayors, council people, community housing advocates, the building trades, and figure out how to build housing across the state of New Jersey. This is what needs to happen immediately. It begins to drop prices, make housing more affordable. We are 230,000 units short of housing. We have people with vouchers in their hand but cannot get housing, meaning they have access to housing because of the voucher, but the market between the voucher and what it costs, the gap is too big, so they can't go in. We have to address this immediately. And we have to begin being creative about what affordability is in specific communities. We have to begin talking about accessory dwelling units. We have to begin talking about building on irregular lots, starter homes, and making opportunities for young people to start their families in communities that they're priced out of. That's too expensive. It's like the gentleman I met in Cape May who's sleeping in his car, who works in Cape May because he can't afford to live in Cape May. Housing is incredibly important. We've gotten it wrong for 30, 40 years. I think we need a leader there, an executive there that can build affordable housing, not just talk about it or pass laws and put it on municipalities and then fight with the municipality because they can't get it done. I say we start that immediately from the governor's office.
Okay.
Mayor Phillip.
Well, let me start by saying that, and I'm going to explain to you why the two things that I would start with would happen in the first week. Being a mayor, I certainly understand that you have a different amount of political capital at the beginning of a term that you do as it progresses. So you need to think about the revenue side of the equation if you're going to fix New Jersey. And you got to think about the complicated things that are harder to pass if you let them linger till later. Two things that are really pressing that right out of the gate when you have the most political capital you need to address. The first one is New Jersey Transit. Last year, it was first proposed in our legislation policy on New Jersey Transit. The governor passed a surtax on corporations of $10 million plus. But similar to everything that Trenton does, it was done improperly. It was done only for 5 years. That means you need to revisit it, number one, whoever is the governor. And secondly, you can't capitalize and bond against a revenue that's only for 5 years. So right out of the gate, while politics are difficult and you have a lot of capital, New Jersey Transit need to address that in perpetuity. And the other thing, in the same package, you need to readdress the taxes in New Jersey on the income tax levels. A millionaire's tax from 20 years ago is not the same as a millionaire's tax today. People make more money today, and we need to reassess the people at the highest level to make sure that people pay their fair share. Right out of the gate, those two things are complicated because there's clearly going to be pushback, but you need to do them when you have the currency politically to do it. From the executive order standpoint, I think that Governor Murphy has done a disservice and totally missed the opportunity with regards to desegregation of housing in schools. He's taken it to court, he's pursued it, and I think often he pursues a outcome from courts when I think that you can be bold around taking actions around that. And the first things I would do from an executive order standpoint is tackling that. How do we better integrate housing? I agree. We have a lot of experience in Jersey City on housing. And how do we go, okay, gotcha. How do we integrate the schools the same way? Housing and schools are linked. How do you combat that? And the executive order approach is the best way to move forward and go away from litigation that's been there for the last couple of years. Senator.
Mayor, thank you very much. Every time the time goes off, I keep reaching for my phone, thinking I'm getting a call. We're going to do something about that. In my conversations with Congresswoman Sherrill, I would suspect that her first bill, if you will, and there's a lot to be done, and we talked. The mayor spoke about many things that I'd like to touch on, but for now, I think both mayors.
There's three mayors.
There you go, three. And I was one too, there's four. That's it. So the bottom line is I know how much it means to her. She's working with Senator Elizabeth Warren right now on a national basis relative to child care credits, to cap literally at 7% of a family's income how much they'll have to pay in child care. Now it's more complicated when you do that on a state level, but I'm absolutely certain that will be a priority of hers to work out some similar program for the families in New Jersey. And part and parcel to that is to deal with those and all the credentialing that has to happen, correctly so, for safety relative to the workers in a child care situation, but doing so that they can have a preceptorship or otherwise, because the biggest complaint you hear about the centers, besides families that are having a difficult time affording them, is that they can't find people that are credentialed to work. From an executive order perspective, a little different than Washington, but I would suspect, and again, having these conversations with the Congresswoman, that it's very troublesome to her, and it's probably going to get worse as to what's going on with ICE, particularly as it relates to immunizing in some way school principals and teachers, immunizing in some way hospital administrators, and immunizing in some way persons at food banks. So that would be what Governor Sherrill would do when she was first in office.
Well, I'll tell you this, as I mentioned in my opening, the first things I'd be addressing is a package of bills that tackle the biggest cost drivers that are out there, right? Housing, healthcare, quality, early affordable education, childcare, and of course looking at higher ed costs as well, right? Looking at these pieces, these are the things that families, individuals are getting hit by here in New Jersey, right? So when we talk about that housing piece, we're really proud of what we were able to do in Montclair and what we can do together, right? I think that right now when you see the affordable housing requirements and the court decisions, what's missing in this is a governor, and this will be me, a governor who comes in and says, we're going to partner with our municipalities and our cities and our townships. We're not going to leave it up to you, who doesn't have anything in your budget, who then relying on developers to come in and build things that are out of line and out of character with 200, 300 units for 10 or 20 affordable units. That's a model that's not working. We need to come in as partners and say, no, we are going to come in and we're going to make sure we're building something more in line with the community, but we're getting the 50 units we need. So we can have 25 that are affordable. We can have 10 that are workforce housing. We can have senior housing. We can layer in pieces that, again, match the needs of our community. It's making sure that we're addressing issues, helping folks that are about to go into foreclosure, providing the services that they need so they don't lose those homes and then begin that downward spiral. Getting homes that are foreclosed on or abandoned properties back onto the market for that first-time home buying experience. It's making sure that folks like me who bought that two-family home was the only way I could afford to live in Montclair are not beat out by the venture capitalists and the LLCs and everything else that right now are gobbling up those properties and raising our costs. We've got to have a period where folks, real folks, have a chance to buy first, and again, not competing against these interests. And we've got to make sure that as we are addressing healthcare costs and other pieces in that space, we do what we did in terms of the state level, look for the big drivers. Look at those insurance companies who hide behind these opaque formulas and they won't tell us anything, yet they tell us there's a 20% increase in our rates again this year. We've got to make sure that we see that, understand it, and push down those costs. And we've got to make sure, again, we're cutting through the red tape to allow more folks to get into that quality early education childcare space. So it's doing all of those things around affordability, making sure we're in that space. And then I'll just briefly say for executive order, listen, I say it as an immigrant myself. The one thing that folks are dealing with now is what my brother and I never had to worry about. That somebody was going to come into our classroom and pull us out and we're never going to see our parents again or tell us we weren't able to go home that day. That's unacceptable. My executive order will be making sure every resident in this state always feels protected and safe.
Mine's a little different than everyone else's. You know, we're facing a $3.7 billion deficit because we do budgeting really, really poorly. In fact, we are recognized as one of the bad states when it comes to budgeting. So one of the first things I would do as governor is give up some of my authority to come up with a more honest and transparent budget process. What we do here in New Jersey doesn't make any sense. We do not work with the legislature. A lot of times it's a battle. Last year's budget was introduced $2 billion out of balance. We added $750 million in spending and said, job well done. This year we're now looking at 3.7. A lot of programs we care about might not survive. So doing multi-year budgeting, consensus forecasting, critically important. The other part is we, and hopefully it's done before, have to stand up to what the hell's going on in this country. You just saw where they're cutting Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP for millionaire tax cuts. When are we going to speak up? I don't see any rallies in the street. I hear people complaining. It's time. People are being hurt. I will be the governor that's not even a little bit afraid. I'm an iron worker. I'd take him on tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Mayor Baraka and Mayor Fulop. New Jersey is known for its excellent public school system. However, public schools around the state are cutting programs and unable to staff classrooms due to funding shortfalls, coupled with unprecedented teacher shortages. This growing crisis will be exacerbated by anticipated cuts in federal funding. What will you do to protect and support New Jersey's public schools during this challenging time? You are first.
I got the straw. I mean, first, we need to be clear that we've had a, billionaire give back here in New Jersey for 2010 and 2022. We gave the wealthy $15 billion back. So this is not a federal problem, it's a state problem, number one. So we need to begin talking about that honestly. Here we need to begin to change the funding formula for education. It's outdated, right? We need to change that, and not change it with bankers and politicals, but bring people together throughout the state that can talk about this, that includes practitioners as well as community advocates, and start talking about weighting funding for English language learners, weighting funding for special needs students, giving districts bonuses for diversity, begin to fight segregation and deal with this idea that if you go across zip codes that you can be arrested. We should pay schools or give schools bonuses who create opportunities for other kids to come to their school. The problem financially is 2 or 3 things. One, we give these pilots out, and when you give out the pilot, it takes money from schools. So in Newark, we give the schools money back through our pilots. Statewide, that needs to happen. Pilots, we need to give money back to the school system. Secondly, we need to be talking about unified school districts. We have too many districts in this state, right? We have more districts than we have cities, so we have more superintendents than we have mayors. We have school districts with 1 school in them, which is ridiculous. We cannot fund school districts with 1 school. We need a unified school district, at least as an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school collectively. And then all schools, in my mind, should be community schools, right? That we should begin to get community-based organizations in the school, before school, after school, and create opportunities for school children, and create real pipelines with community colleges and local universities to begin pulling kids out of high school and making them teachers so they can go back into the profession. This is a real thing that needs to happen with a collective group of people. It's a big problem, and I can't solve it alone. The bigger the problem, the more folks we need on it, right? I think this is something we can do immediately, and I'll be glad to get it done.
Thank you, Neil. Look, I think this is a place that Raz and I overlap in many ways. We both deal with very complicated cities, cities that have very diverse populations, and large school districts. And we share a lot of similar beliefs on this. I'll go back and expand a little bit on what he said, because I think largely we're in the same place. The school funding formula hasn't been adjusted since 2008. It's outdated for sure. And I think that any reasonable person understands the fact that the schools in New Jersey, the public schools, are something that we're very proud of. We need to continue to invest in there. Phil Murphy does deserve credit on this, putting funding there. But the reality is that the funding formula is outdated, particularly around special education. It's a place that you can alleviate some of the tax burden that people feel and at the same time deliver a better product. The second thing I touched on earlier was the desegregation of schools, and there's a lot of ways to combat that, and I think that we need to be at the forefront of that. That's a place that you can improve and invest the public education system here in New Jersey. Magnet schools, county schools, and I think something that he said is true for housing and education is that Trenton needs to use the carrot and the stick approach, more transparency around who is operating in a positive way, and reward those actors that are moving forward in a positive way. Today, that doesn't happen. And it will clearly, there's no penalty for not doing the right thing and no reward if you do the right thing. So it encourages people to move in a bad direction ultimately. So I think that the consolidation conversation is super important. For the first time, there's a bill in Trenton that has a forced consolidation conversation. And I think that if you are going to move forward, that is a reality of the conversation you need to have. You need a governor who's willing to have tough conversations and be honest with you, saying, this is the direction that we will go forward on. I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. The first thing I said is, I'm not gonna win the speech conversation, I'm gonna win the policy conversation. I'm gonna be detailed and tell you specifically that when I'm elected, this is what I will do. And the consolidation piece is a big one, building on what Mayor Baraka said.
Thank you. question is for the Cheryl campaign, Mayor Spiller and Senator Sweeney. What specific policies will you implement to expand affordable health insurance coverage, and address what we know are persistent and increasing disparities in access to health care in our state? Additionally, if the Trump administration implements cuts to Medicaid and other critical social problems, how would you address the shortfall? Starting with Senator McKeon for the Cheryl campaign.
Can you repeat the question? Yeah, it's a thorny problem as it relates to healthcare. You know, although others will argue that our healthcare system isn't as great as it is in other countries, truth be told is that we're the envy of all the world. It just costs a ton of money as it comes down to it. Now, I know that Congressman Cheryl worked very hard in Congress as it relates to seeing that insulin was capped at $35 a month, seeing that seniors' out-of-pocket cost was capped at no more than $2,000 in a given year, and as it relates to trying to move it in a way to make healthcare more affordable, I would suspect that you'll see some of that similar kind of policy from a state level. As it relates to disparities, my God, you know, there's so much that needs to be done, talking about just maternal health, the nursing shortage. There's a lot to be tackled, which just gets to why it's so important as it relates to the wisdom of the electorate as to whom, with our values, is going to be sitting in that governor's chair moving forward. So with that, Mayor?
Well, listen, and I think a lot to that question, but I'll say this, and I talked about it before. Look, when we looked at the healthcare costs that we were getting hit with before, we said we've got to examine what the big cost drivers are and try to address them, right? And we looked at those plans and said, hey, where are we seeing the big costs? We're seeing it around, chiropractic. We're seeing it around some other spots, right? And we said, how do we address these costs while still providing quality care, right? And by looking at those big pieces, we're able to, again, put in the measures that still provide folks with quality care, but we're able to reduce some of those costs, right? And we were also able to do creative pieces where we say, hey, listen, we're going to set up networks within networks. We're going to have networks within networks where doctors can join. They can have their patient load limited. They can then create that VIP type relationship in healthcare with their patient. And then through that process, able to follow up, make sure they're taking their medications and doing all those other things. We're getting better outcomes for our residents, better outcomes for the users. And again, driving down those costs because things aren't progressing to the place where it then requires constant care, more expensive care. We set those rings up. We set them up in North, Central, South Jersey. We looked at those and looked at the savings that we were able to get from those. And again, we modify the plans accordingly to, again, make sure we continue to get those savings. We're able to set up those plans that are both Jersey specific and more broad. We're able to look at, I think, each and every one of these pieces and say, how do you examine the spots and make it cheaper for folks? But the big challenge that we're facing right now is eventually you run up against the wall. And the wall that we're running up against is, well, first, hospital pricing and some of the big drivers there and why, and understanding those. But the second one is the insurance companies themselves. The insurance companies right now hide behind proprietary reasons where they say they don't tell us the relationship they have with the doctor and the amounts that they pay. They don't give us the outcomes in terms of what's the quality of the care and the outcome on the patient. And without knowing those pieces, it is very hard to say, hey, how are we addressing a 20% increase when you won't even tell me why it is going up? Or you won't even tell me which doctors we have a bigger amount or a smaller amount. We've got to see those costs. We've got to understand the challenges and the problems so we can address it just like we did before. Look, we were able to save billions before by doing this. We can do this again, right? And that's the space we have to focus.
It's providing good health care at a better price. We created a thing called primary care medical home centers. Because ever since Obamacare came along, the primary care doctors are seeing like 3,500 patients. You know, the fee for service, how, doctor runs in, looks at you. No, what we created was doctor can't have more than 1,000 patients. Doctor gets to spend the time he needs to spend with the patient. Better outcomes, the doctor gets a bonus. Going back to the way healthcare was when I was a kid, where the doctor actually took an interest and had an understanding. So fee for service sucks, right or wrong. And coming back with healthcare that actually is healthcare, quality healthcare, where they're making sure you're getting your meds and your diets. We did that in New Jersey. We started it. The second thing is going after the cost drivers. I did a bill called a reverse auction on PBMs. Does anybody know what PBM is? Prescription Benefit Manager? They're the middle guys that don't do nothing, but make a whole lot of money. We did a reverse auction in eBay on pharmaceuticals. We saved $500 million a year for 5 years. There's ways of doing this, but you have to understand it. See, I got a little bit of an advantage because I'm the labor chair of 3 different health and welfare funds. So, you know, it's a world that I live in often, and I'm telling you, the primary care medical home centers really is back to the future, is the way we should go, where doctors, not insurance companies, actually give care, better outcomes, better life.
Yeah, can I answer for 1 minute? That's a really important question. Just 1 minute, you give us each. Both of us.
30 seconds.
Sure. I just wanted to answer this directly and say that if you're going to change healthcare in New Jersey, you need to confront Horizon. They have an absolute monopoly in New Jersey, and if you're going to change it, you need to be at the forefront. The second thing, while I'm talking fast, is that you have this hospital monopoly in New Jersey, that consolidation has been allowed by Trenton, which is counter to your interests. Doctors no longer make your decisions. Hospitals make your decisions in New Jersey, and you need to change that. Third, your question was about when Trump unwinds Medicaid and Medicare, what you're going to do. I'm going to tell you just quickly, in Jersey City we have roughly $60 million we get from federal funds, and we started to go through the dollars because it's going to mean that we're going to have to make choices. Who are the most vulnerable communities that you need to prioritize? Example, the trans community is clearly a target of President Trump. And if you take away Medicaid and Medicare, you'll have more depression, more suicide, more drug use. And you need to think about that. In Jersey City, we think about Meals on Wheels. We deliver 250,000 meals per year. That's a potential place that we get cut. He's got the red sign up, so I'm going to sign off now. Okay.
So the back forward, actually we, thinking about the same thing, we give money to community-based organizations that are handling some of these things that would be hurt by Medicaid cuts and Medicare cuts. We help these organizations continue to support the constituencies that the federal government is going to cut off. Number two, in terms of healthcare costs, right, what we have to do is reference-based pricing, right? If we just paid 150% above Medicare costs, we would save the state over $1 billion in 3 years. We're paying 200% and 300% above Medicare costs in New Jersey for workers who are spending a third of their raises on healthcare costs as opposed to taking it home to their families. That has to be changed. Governor Murphy created the Office of Healthcare Accountability and Transparency. To begin to look at these things, we have to give them teeth, right? I met a guy in Monmouth County whose son was born with 3 chambers in his heart. Right? So he has to constantly go in and out of the hospital. He has a deductible of $10,000 and still has to pay a copay and still has to pay insurance. We have to be honest and have a real discussion about single-payer system, public option, Medicare for all in New Jersey. We have to have that discussion.
Thank you both. Okay. Question 3 for Mayor Baraka, you're up again, and the Cheryl campaign. As governor, how would you use your powers to protect law-abiding, undocumented immigrants? Do you support the Immigrant Trust Act currently pending in the legislature, S3672, A4987 in the Assembly?
Absolutely, I support that. First, we thought we need to change the context of this discussion. We keep having a discussion around the parameters that were created, which are actually lies. This whole idea of immigrants being criminals. This is not real. This is a joke that these people keep coming up with. The reality is, if in any of our cities, if we just solve for immigrant crime and immigrants just created crime, we would have the lowest crime in the history of the world, right? This doesn't make sense to have this discussion. And the fact that we keep saying illegal when these people are moving the goalposts, making all of the ways that you can become a legal citizen in this country, they're taking it away from people. So there's no long line of people waiting because there is no line, because there's no way to become a citizen in this country, right? It's ridiculous. We have to allow people an opportunity to be citizens. You know, it was easier for you to be a citizen in the United States 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago than it is today. that we've taken away all of the opportunity for people to become citizens, after we advertise to the world that we're the best democracy in the world. You listen to all these people talking about the best education, the best health care, the best this, the freedom of this, the freedom of that. Then people come here to try to figure it out. We tell them to get out. This doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. So we have to stop having this argument about immigrants being criminals. It is a lie. It is a lie. And it is something, by the way, that they did to everybody when they came here. They did to Italians, to Irish, to Jews, to everybody, to Muslims, to everybody's a criminal, right? And so they keep doing it because it keeps working. And we have to stop it. Like, I'm not having any more discussions with people about immigrants being illegal or criminals and all these other kind of things. Because there's some people that I know that are criminals. They happen to be the president of the United States.
It's really fun to be Mayor Braga, let me tell you. You know, I can share with you a story that the Congresswoman told me recently that she ran into a young lady from Dover. And the young lady said to her, and she happened to be a dreamer, right? She wasn't born in this country, but has been raised here, and said to Congressman or Congresswoman, I don't even know how to speak Spanish. What will I do if they send me back? And to me, that was just so powerful to hear that, the kind of thing that's ongoing. And all of us have stories. I personally, I'll tell you mine. I have three grandparents from Italy and one from Ireland. So I know what their struggles were. And seeing this breaks our heart, and knowing that those who are here are hardworking individuals who can be an important part of our economy, like the mayor said, not criminals, as they would want you to know. I know that the Congresswoman shared with me that for a little bit of spirit, maybe it's a good read for all of us to do, is she'll read the Federalist Papers once in a while, and doing so, garnering that fire to God, look at the Fourth Amendment, look at the 14th Amendment, understanding that those are our laws and our rules, and that we have to do everything we can in order to stand up for our constitutional rights. So relative to her views, I told you her first executive order would protect a lot of the people that from ICE and from the, I hate to use the word Gestapo, but what this administration is doing. So I think we're all of like mind.
The next question is for Mayor Fulop, Mayor Spiller, and Senator Sweeney. New Jersey is a home rule state. How, as governor, would you balance local concerns with the need for coordinated statewide action on issues such as housing, warehouse siting, climate resiliency, education, and a very long, long list of other issues?
Are we always starting on this side with me and Brooke?
Mayor Fulop, you go first.
Okay. Well, let me start by saying that home rule is really important, and people choose to live in a municipality because it has a certain amount of integrity and sentiment that they appreciate. And we need to respect that for sure. And I think whoever is the next governor needs to understand that for certain. But being mayors, you certainly understand also the limits, and if you have an objective of the governor, whether it's on schools or whether it's on housing, there are obstacles to get there. So I think in certain situations, home rule should be circumvented as it relates to transit-oriented developments, as example, to encourage more development. But from the Trenton standpoint, in order to encourage more housing, you need to use a carrot and a stick. So Republicans would like you to think about the fact that they could reverse 30, 40, 50 years of affordable housing rule, and that's just not the reality. As opposed to circumventing home rule, a governor needs to understand how do you encourage somebody to get to the place that you want them to get to. How do you do that? Trenton needs to make it more transparent for the municipalities that are fulfilling their obligation so that the NIMBYs don't control the conversation, which is what happens in too many municipalities today. That's number one. Number two is you need to encourage with the carrot and the stick those actors that are doing a good job. Today in Trenton, there isn't a vision that translates to the municipalities and is encouraged with direct dollars from Trenton. And that leads to what I said earlier. There's no incentive to do it and no penalty not to do it. If you are going to move forward on a vision of more housing, you need to understand to use the levers in that way. So particularly around home rule, I think it's important to respect it. And I think that if you go from the standpoint of saying you're going to undermine it, your chances this coming November in reality are very, very slim. But being a mayor, I think you can understand how you could get more housing being built, because that is one of the biggest challenges we have in the state, in a way of using the purse strings from Trenton to get there.
Look, I think it's exactly as I noted before, housing being that example, right? When I noted that we need to be partners as a state, which is exactly what I'll be as governor, to make sure we're leading with dollars in that space to get things done, because that's how you incentivize folks to kind of come forward. As a mayor, though, I do understand, right, when folks talk about home rule, they understand that, hey, I want somebody who knows our issues specifically. I want to make sure someone's fighting for us. I want to make sure someone's responding to my call, right? That's something that's kind of ingrained in what we do, and that's why we really see that home rule push in each and every one of our spaces. But I will say this. There are things that inherently fit to a broader approach, right? I look at it right now and I say, as an example, right, when we really invest, right, we reduced our municipal debt in town by $60 million. We got a AAA bond rating, and we took those dollars and we were reinvesting those in a lot of our infrastructure, right? Replacing our water lines, our sewer lines, all those other pieces. But inherently, you quickly figure out that all of that doesn't matter if the water line literally in the next town over breaks and you can't get the water to your town, right? These are regional issues, especially if you look at certain parts of the state and how old the infrastructure is. These are issues where you have to look at it more broadly, and who better do that than the state, right? A broader sense of understanding, hey, here's the work, here's how it intersects. Here's how we incentivize you working together, whether it's your connection lines or other pieces, to say, hey, when you come together and you work on this and we give you dollars to do it, you are all going to benefit. There are countless things like that when you say, hey, when you partner, we're going to give dollars. If you're going it alone, we appreciate that you're trying, but it's not going to be as effective. And I also think we have to understand and acknowledge, especially at the state level, that one of the big problems that we have, and then we leave it up to home rule, is the fact that the state passes so many things and then doesn't fund them, right? These unfunded mandates, right? Any mayor, anybody else will tell you, it is the bane of our existence, right? Because there's only one place, primarily, we can get the dollars to fund these things. But really, it's that little secret of, like, we think it's a great idea for you to make these improvements to your water lines or your sewer lines, but go out and do it on your own. Figure out how you get the money. Right? When you have these unfunded mandates, you leave it to your towns, your municipalities, but we've got to address it at the state level, where we put those resources, put those dollars, and have a much more collective, broader vision to address the issues.
I get home rule, but I don't, because the reason why we don't have enough housing in this state is because of home rule. They have been fighting since 1971, after the Supreme Court ruled about affordable housing. Oh, by the way, that was my first townhouse, okay? Because everyone's affordable housing is the demon. Well, my house was workforce housing. So it's time the community stops spending millions and millions of dollars fighting and start finding ways to build housing, because housing prices, an average housing price in New Jersey is $550,000. It's only going up unless we build more. Oh, and the other great thing with home rule, which I really love, is warehouses. Anybody think we have enough warehouses? Well, guess what happens with warehouses? One town puts the warehouses right on the border of the other town. So the other town gets all the traffic, all the congestion, all the crap, and they get the revenue. I understand home rule, but it needs to be modified, because just like a lot of things, it's in the past. We need to be able to create an environment. I proposed a bill in the legislature right before I left. I wasn't planning on leaving, but I left. What they call that, shit happens. But at the end of the day, that when you're dealing with warehousing, especially warehousing, it has to be looked at as a regional approach, which Sean mentioned, a regional approach. How it's impacting the communities around you. Because it's not okay just to put your trash on your neighbor's property, or right on the corner. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is for Mayor Baraka, Mayor Phillip, and the Sherrill campaign. New Jersey, like the rest of the country, is facing two dire crises: insufficient housing and climate change. The state recently adopted A4S50, legislation that governs municipalities' fulfillment of their Round 4 Mount Laurel housing obligations. The state is also poised to adopt REAL, the reform to support resilient environments and landscapes, updated land resource rules designed to bolster New Jersey's resilience to the impacts of climate change. many municipal officials, like myself, are committed to sustainability and affordable housing production. However, many of us are also deeply concerned about what may be insurmountable obstacles in reaching simultaneous compliance with both of these pieces of legislation. How would you resolve this conflict and work as governor to ensure, because this is not an unusual disconnect in Trenton between agencies, ensure that the agencies you oversee better coordinate initiatives such that municipalities are not faced with conflicting mandates? It's an easy one.
It's you.
Well, this is something that we have to deal with in Newark all the time. We obviously have an affordable housing mandate. We have inclusionary zoning that requires people to build 20% affordability in properties that they develop. We use our Affordable Housing Trust Fund to invest in the community so we can build more affordable housing. We have laws that, because we have a land bank, the only city that has a land bank, we take our property and begin to get it to community development organizations that do affordable housing, right? We also partner with the environmental organizations in our city as well. We have a ordinance in the city that was passed, that's a cumulative impact ordinance, right? That allows us in the city to stop projects or pull projects back that are adding to the cumulative impact of pain or having a deleterious effect on the environment. We can pull those projects back. But I think the centerpiece here is the zoning ordinances. Senator Singleton has a bill that kind of addresses the zoning ordinances. Our zoning ordinance changes because what happens now is that developers have to plant trees. Developers have to have green roofs. Developers have to add to open space. If you're building in our city, you have to have flood mitigation, right? We do these things out of necessity, right? Because we live in a flood zone. So the zoning ordinances direct the housing developers in such a way that they begin to take care of the environment as they build. And they're not running from the city. They're not running and saying we're not developing because you're requiring us to plant trees, because you're requiring us to have green roofs or solar panels or open space. And this can be done on the state side. We can make sure that there's state rules that allow for municipalities to have zoning ordinances that require developers and housing developers to take the environment and keep the environment in mind. To build trees, to plant trees, green roofs, solar panels, all the things that we need to preserve our environment, we can get developers to do for us without even spending taxpayer dollars to do that.
Thank you, Mia. I told you earlier that I'd be honest with you and tell you details on why I believe what I believe. Let me start with the DEP. There's no question that the DEP has been gutted, and it's a commitment that we will return the staffing to what it was prior to Chris Christie. I think that's important because it layers in with these real regulations from the DEP. I testified in favor. And why did I testify in favor? Because I believe that climate change is a quintessential threat that needs to be addressed. And you need to think of it at this moment. Everybody will always have an excuse why not now. And we need to show some leadership. Those rules have been researched with scientists for 10 plus years. And I'm a mayor. I understand why mayors don't like it. But if you are going to combat climate change, you need to be able to have tough conversations. I'm at the forefront and standing alone on congestion pricing, and I was right about it because it was good for the environment and it's a good policy. I was right, and I commit to the fact that we will redesignate the $11 billion on the Turnpike expansion towards mass transit, because if you are going to talk about mass transit and the climate, those are things that you need to do.
Right.
As the mayor, we've invested heavy in electrification of our vehicles. We've built more electric charging stations than anybody in New Jersey. We did a $20 million bond to solar and retrofit all of our buildings in order to save money. We have leaned in hard into this conversation because I believe it's important. I like to say that, I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So clearly I will stay here all night to answer questions. But besides that, I tell you, I do think a lot about what the world will be like for them. And I know that these are tough conversations, and I know that mayors push back. but you need to show some leadership and say, this is the moment. These are 10 years in research, these regulations. And now is the moment to push forward and say, even in a tough environment where you have a president who doesn't believe in climate change, New Jersey needs to show some leadership and think about what we can control here until we have a better president in 4 years.
Yes, thanks very much. And housing is a major issue of priority to the Congresswoman. She reminds me, she said, by the way, when we had the last Republican governor, he closed down the Commission on Affordable Housing. So let's not, again, forget what's at stake with this election that's upcoming, because that will happen again. And I understand that Princeton is so committed to doing the kind of projects that you are. There's everything that has to be a part of the solution. It's not just going to be about now the streamlined legislative process that, as that law, will certainly is in the process of being challenged, but hopefully will be the law and will catch up on the backlog. But it's everything else. It's repurposing buildings. Look at the commercial market, how it's fallen apart. Those buildings are there. Governor Sherrill will put us in a position to be able to move in that direction to create more units. I know something, and say everything is on the record. Redevelopment is so important relative to places like Patterson, Harrison, where infrastructure is in place. Yet, again, a lot of the red tape that keeps that from happening has to be moved. Mayor made a great, mayor, I don't know why I can say mayor, but he's looking. This mayor made a great point as it related to DEP. The Republicans thought they were smart. They were going to fire a lot of people at DEP, and then they didn't have to worry anymore. Or just the opposite. There isn't anybody there to do the work. So things are really elongated at this point. So that's an important priority that will come out of Governor Sherrill if that's the case. I know that in Princeton they use alternate ADUs, right? Alternate dwelling units. So one of the few accessory. Accessory. I'm sorry. One of the very few in the state. That's something that's on the table too, from a perspective of state law. It's something that has to be considered. I mean, there's nothing. We talk about health care is no longer a privilege; it is a right, and Mikey Sherrill believes that. Housing is as well, and that will be reflective of her administration's policies.
Thank you. So this ties in some of the other questions that you've answered. This is for Mayor Spiller and Senator Sweeney. New Jersey is one of the most segregated states in the nation, with one of the worst racial wealth gaps in the country. What policies would you propose, and how would you take action when first in office to address these egregious divides in an effective way?
I think much of the conversation we're having now is about addressing some of these pieces, right? And I say that starting from a perspective of housing, right? This concept, which is just ridiculous, that we could say we need quality housing in every community. Oh, but by the way, if I give you enough money and pay you, you build all the housing, and I don't have to worry about it. And when I hear these conversations, and I understand that people say there's infrastructure in places, and that's where folks are going to want to be. I'll tell you this: folks want to be everywhere. Folks want to experience all the different things that our wonderful communities have, and we've got to make sure that we are putting quality housing that's affordable in every single one of our communities, and understanding that one of the big barriers while we have such segregated communities that lots of folks can't afford to be in different spaces, right? And that's a challenge. We've got to make sure that every single spot, there are opportunities for someone to be able to afford that first home or afford their rent. I'm really proud that we have accessory dwelling units in Montclair, or any of those options that we know allow more folks to be able to take advantage of our different and diverse communities. And that's how we get more diversity into our spaces. When we talk about our schools, again, mentioned before, really proud of Montclair. Right? In Montclair, we said every single one of our schools is a magnet school. Every single one of our schools has busing. Right? No such thing as that home school that you have there. What we've been able to do is, even within our community, create the type of diversity that we want to see. And there's plenty of cities and other spaces that could benefit from that. Let's start getting the diversity within our communities and then expand it from there by incentivizing, saying if you are school districts that are nearby and you also want to make sure more students can come into your buildings, come into your schools, we're going to give you more dollars as part of the school funding formula. Right? Make sure we're incentivizing you doing that work as well. Again, breaking down these barriers that have existed for years that have created the inequities that we see in terms of opportunity. And we've got to be honest about that as we have the conversation, saying This is not just a school conversation. This is not just a housing conversation. This is not just a healthcare conversation. This is not just any one of these. Every one of these issues that I'm talking about addressing, they are connected to the inequity and, quite frankly, the segregation that we see in this state.
Well, the problem keeps coming back to the same thing. It's housing. We send our kids to go to school by zip codes. And it's housing. And you know, the bigger problem is the lack of housing and the lack of opportunity to have affordable housing keeps people poor. You know, when people have to rent all the time because they can't afford a house to buy a house, they don't get that opportunity to start building wealth. You know, that first thing, I remember with myself, I said I bought a townhouse. I couldn't believe I was so fortunate. But that's when I started building wealth. Because if all you're doing is renting all the time, then you don't build anything. And so, like I said, I think we all up here agree, housing, at least from what I'm hearing with everyone, is something that we all should say is number one, day one. And like I said, we send kids by zip codes. You know, that's a reality. So until we integrate our communities better, we're going to have segregated school systems. So I think it's very important for us to find ways, you know, whatever the reason is, the term affordable housing is bad, but affordable housing is the house I bought. You know what I mean? It's the very first house I bought. You know, you want to change it to workforce housing? Well, I was a union iron worker, you know, so, okay, workforce housing. But it keeps coming back to people having problems building more houses in communities. And we need to find a way to take that barrier down and stop it. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is for Mayor Baraka, Mayor Phillip, and Mayor Spiller. As governor, how would you plan to meet or exceed New Jersey's carbon emission reduction goals, especially in light of anticipated severe rollbacks by the Trump administration? What specific initiatives will you implement to ensure we remain a leader in clean energy and transportation, environmental justice, and climate resilience?
So in Newark, we've also weatherized our buildings. We've also electrified our vehicles. Our garbage fleet is electrified. The goal that Governor Murphy set in place, we need to continue that. We need to continue to march towards that goal to 2035, to have a clean environment here, to have alternative energy. We need to stay on that. We need to lean into solar, lean into the wind farms, even though people are pushing away from that. In Hunterdon County, they're having brownouts, which is ridiculous. You know, like we're in another place. So ultimately, we have to begin to create a policy, lean in on cumulative impact ordinance in New Jersey. New Jersey has that. Give it some teeth so that we can begin to make folks that want to build or develop mitigate the problems that they have. We need to use our AG's office to sue all of the individuals that have polluted our water space, that are encroaching upon our community in terms of the land space. So we're not just using public dollars, we're using private dollars. We're getting about $6, $7, $8 million in the city of Newark because we're part of the class action lawsuit for PFAS. So we need to begin to use that to do that. And we need a process to begin to electrify the vehicles that the state has, our fleet, and begin to incentivize municipalities through tax credits or other opportunities so they can begin to electrify their fleets where they are and begin to weatherize their building and work with PSE&G and all the other electric companies and all these other places to begin investing in solar, that we begin to have solar farms in the state of New Jersey to drive costs down and begin to have cleaner energy here in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you, Mia. I think I told you in the last question how passionately I feel about environmental justice and climate change and why. And I think that there are some very specific things that we can do in the next couple of years, and I think we need to be really strategic and thoughtful because you have an administration that doesn't believe in this. So we can't be pie in the sky on what we can do. We need to think about how do we move the ball forward with an administration in Washington that is totally counterproductive to what we're trying to do. And that's the best way to think about climate change over the next 4 years. Number one is we are aligned. 2035, there's conversations in Trenton around moving that target that the legislature and Governor Murphy put in place, and that should be a non-starter. Whoever is the next governor should clearly say we are moving, because targets are important. People need to live up to those goals. I'm a big believer in the truck standards. There's legislation in Trenton as it relates to moving forward in the next 2 years over changing to electrification and cleaner trucks. And I think that's important. There's conversations in Trenton about changing that or prolonging that. I think it's a non-starter. I think over the next 4 years, we need to be thinking about open space, preservation of open space. How do we get municipalities more green acres money, blue acres money? How do we look at the things that we control from Trenton in order to make sure that we are moving the climate conversation forward? How do we encourage PSE&G to make sure that there's more electric charging stations and more opportunities for when you have another administration that is more supportive of it? I think that the biggest thing that we can do is preparing for the next 4 years. We should not walk away from wind. Wind is important. How do we set up the procurement process so that we hit the ground running when he's not there in 4 years? Climate change is a core issue. There's no question about it. And we need to be strategic, whoever the next governor is, not just saying pie in the sky, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, because the reality is that you have limited resources when you have a federal government that is fighting you. But there's a lot of things that we can control here, and we need to be thoughtful and prioritize that.
I think that as you look in this space, you rely on a lot of things that you've done, right? And you see what things have been effective, and you go from there. Really proud in Montclair of the energy aggregation, residential energy aggregation program that we move forward with, right? Moving forward with cleaner energy, green energy than the state requirements, exceeding it significantly. And by the way, we're also able to save our residents dollars while doing it, right? These are spaces where you say, hey, you know, this is a positive impact, people are supportive of it, and we grow those types of programs at the state level. Our investment that we did in a microgrid in our township, making sure, again, that we're meeting our needs as that we have increased energy demands, and we all do, right? As we see newer technologies, as we move towards electrification of our infrastructure, we are relying more and more on energy, and we've got to meet those demands. When we've also invested and upgraded our infrastructure to make sure we're moving towards electrification and having those pieces in place, again, it's using the 1 + 1 = 3, right? In terms of, hey, those are dollars that we're investing in our infrastructure, but they also are impacting our environment and making improvements, right? When you look at all of this, though, I think it's important to have the context that not doing anything has a major cost to it, right? We have to be very honest and clear with folks that say, hey, those 100-year storms that are happening every other year in Montclair, flooding out our businesses and our schools and everything else, that has a major cost, right? That is impacting every single one of us, and it is costing us dollars. If you're able to rebuild after some of these storms, but then you can't get the insurance and the rates that are so high, right? We've got to tie these pieces together where folks are understanding that the investments that we're doing, certainly in the green economy and moving forward, they're going to pay in tenfold, right, in terms of the savings that we're going to get to not only our quality of life, but also the dollars we have to spend as well. So it's looking at the things we've done. It's as a state saying we're going to continue to invest and provide dollars for those programs that the federal government is cutting back on, so we continue to be moving, but it's being nimble in those spaces as well to say, hey, listen, if wind is going to be right now a space where folks are really, really afraid because of what the federal government's doing, then yes, we've got to pivot towards solar or another space where we know there's still opportunities, right? So putting all that together, though, it's the outcomes and impacting folks and certainly making the environment, but also the economy and their lives better, tying all those together in our conversations.
Can I add something to this, please? Look, I was the prime sponsor of Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. I was the prime sponsor of solar recs. I was the prime sponsor of ORECs and the ZECs that kept the nuclear plants open because they were going to close. We have a huge energy problem in New Jersey. Thank God for Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. He sued the PJM. That's how we get our energy. Our energy bills would have gone through the roof come June. We need more energy. Now, I just told you I'm supportive of all those things. I sponsored them all. We need all the above approach. We need to talk about hydrogen. We do need to talk about gas for now as a bridge fuel. Because what's happening is if you're reading the stories and you're watching what's going on right now, people aren't going to be able to pay their electric bills. So, look, we all support and believe in the environment. I'm proud of the work that I've done because I sponsored all the major legislation on this. At the end of the day, If we don't do something different, we're taking power down. We're reducing generation in the state as we're increasing demand. You know what happens with that? Coal plants in the Midwest and in Virginia are going to be working 24/7, and that stuff flies west to east and lands here in New Jersey.
And thanks for just a couple seconds, you know, and all of it, we understand the existential threat that global warming is. But at the end of the day, we all want to put our lights on, right? The biggest issue, and in speaking to the Congresswoman about this, is the grid. The grid is inadequate. There's enough wind in North Dakota to light up the whole country if there was a way to get it there. And we are out of space. So all that we're doing in order to expand upon as our population continues, we gained 1 million people in the last 10 years in New Jersey. The grid has to be invested in. That will be a priority of Governor Sherrill.
Okay, the next question is definitely an issue for the entire state, but I will tell you that we feel it particularly hard here in Mercer County. And this is Senator McKeon for the Sherrill campaign, and then Senator Sweeney. Would you support mandating the warehouse siting guidance created by the New Jersey State Planning Commission in September 2022 into law? This would ensure that new warehouse developments are built in appropriate locations without sacrificing environmental sustainability and the quality of life for residents. It would also set the standard for a good neighbor policy for regional township leadership. Senator McKeon?
So that one's real easy. That's a resounding yes. When the conversation took place before as it related to home rule, and several of the panelists or candidates had suggested that's a great example of what has to be planned from the big picture as opposed to just single. This is the time for a moratorium. This is the time for the state to be getting involved in order to dealing with that aspect of the economy. Face it, everybody, that's here as it relates to how we're going to deliver many of the goods that we all rely upon, but to do it in a fair and equitable way, taking into factors like environmental justice and otherwise.
And I already answered the question. You know what I mean? Thank you. And look, we're not saying you can't build, but you got to build in the right places. We're building, I'm an ironworker, we build these things. We're building like a 4.5 million square foot Walmart warehouse in the middle of Salem County, in the middle of farm fields, 90 feet tall. That probably doesn't belong there, you know? So making sure, and again, I got a lot of help from the League of Municipalities when I started talking about you have to be a good neighbor. Because of home rule again. A good neighbor doesn't dump on their neighbor. Thank you.
Okay, we have a little more time than we anticipated, so I'm going to do I'm going to switch things around, and we had one sort of 1 minute question, which we didn't want to subject you to a yes, no, hands up, hands down question. We didn't feel that was fair, but you can yes, no this question, or you can elaborate a little bit. And then I will ask the last question, which is a 2-minute question, which I think is a natural segue into what will be your final statement. So this is just 1 minute or yes, no. Do you support the New Jersey Climate Superfund Act? The bill imposes liability on certain fossil fuel companies who do business in New Jersey for certain damages caused by climate change, and establishes a grant program to municipalities who can use funds for resiliency projects. And we'll just go in alphabetical order.
Yes.
Yes.
No, yeah, and I said it earlier, we are already doing that, and we are suing companies to make sure that, one, they clean up the facade, two, that the companies that have dumped in our water system, that we're getting money and resources from them. So statewide, I think this should happen across the state of New Jersey.
The short answer is yes, and we have a lot of experience with this. The two largest Superfund sites that were lawsuits and slated for housing happen to be in Jersey City. We sued Honeywell for $400 million. It's now going to be 8,000 units on the western side of Jersey City. We purchased it back from Honeywell for $100 million in order to create 35% affordable housing. It's the largest mixed income community in the region, and we're doing that in Jersey City Actions. So yes, I'm very proud of that. It's going to transform the entire west side of Jersey, and it's a model for what's possible with regards to affordable housing and us putting our dollars there. Now, we had a similar project that we're going through the cleanup now. That'll be another 3,000 units. I say this because I agree with Mayor Baraka, and I'm sure Sean Spiller will say the same. As a mayor, we recognize the obstacles dealing with these super large companies and the lawsuits from the federal standpoint. The more tools that you can provide for municipalities at the local level to hold people accountable is a good thing. There is no reason that anybody should oppose that legislation.
Well, there's a very dynamic, handsome senator that happens to be the prime sponsor of that bill. Congresswoman better support it. And she does. And in earnest, you know, it really, to me, it's a no-brainer, you know, to use the Latin term. When it comes to it, this only involves companies that have put over 100 million pounds of carbon into the air since 1998. So it's not like the tobacco thing, or we didn't know any better. By 1998, they knew better. And it'll ultimately come up with about $750 million for the state to deal with resiliency projects, anything from mom and pop being able to raise their house, right to dealing with, you know, resiliency walls and things along those lines. And by the way, that sum of money is about 1/10 of the quarterly profits of Exxon. Right. So it's not going to put anybody out of business.
Short answer is yes, for all the reasons you've heard before, you know, and I think it's important to just put those costs in perspective, right? I say that as a mayor where we were working to get those forever chemicals out of our water system before it was even required by the state. And I remember having the conversation with our water director. He said, we're going to add these filters in to our well systems, we're going to put this in place, and we're going to be able to pull these things out. And we looked at the bill and we said, wait a minute, is that $250,000 a year? Are we reading that correctly? Is that for the filter? Yeah, that's just for the filter. You know, I mean, the cost associated with trying to clean up. Remember, they pulled all the money out already, right? Big oil, they've gotten their dollars, right? They keep sucking it out from us, and we're left with the recurring, constant, super expensive costs. So absolutely supportive, because whether you're a municipality, you're a homeowner, you're others who are trying to, try to get by, but also make up for the profits that they pulled out and the consequences of it. We need to get some of those dollars back, because these are really expensive fixes that we have to have for, you know, countless number of years going forward.
Yes, thank you.
I could have saved time and just said all the candidates support this, but okay, good to know that you all do. Okay, this is the final question, and as I said, I think it will then be a natural segue when you go into your final statements. We've discussed tonight how crucial this election is and how much is at stake, and how in electing a Democratic governor to protect us from what is happening in DC. So the question is, if New Jersey does not succeed in electing a Democratic governor, the state will be dramatically more vulnerable to what is happening on the federal level, a prospect that many Democrats find terrifying. Why do you believe that you are the candidate best equipped to energize Democrats in New Jersey, leading to a win in November? And how about if we go in reverse order this time?
Now, as a little bit of a smile, Steve and I were just like, we should just grab the mic and go first this time. Come on.
I'm sorry, I should have done this earlier. Go ahead.
Just give me the question. He just turned me off. We were just excited that we were going to win.
What you gonna do to win?
What am I going to do to win? I'm going to talk to the people, the Democrats that aren't voting Democrat anymore. I'm going to reach out to the people that lost faith in the Democrat Party, because we don't talk about what they care about. It's the economy, stupid. Bill Clinton said it in '92. 100 years from now, it'll be the same thing. You always worry about the economy and what you're going to do to make it better. You know, I call union halls every morning. How's work? How many people you have out of work? Because if I have 200 members in one of my unions, it's 200 families that are not paying their bills. A strong economy, they're working. That's what we need to focus on. Listen, people just didn't vote for us. You have to think why they didn't vote for us anymore. We need to focus on things that are important. And affordability, it's a word everyone's going to say. New Jersey's too expensive. We have to make it more affordable. So, unlike everyone else up here, again, I'm a construction guy. I didn't go to college, but I am as blue collar as you're going to find. And the blue collar has left us. In 1960, ironworkers were all Kennedy Democrats. 1980, they became Reagan Democrats. Now they're not Democrats because we're not talking to them. Please, we all have to pledge to get back to people so that we can start bringing people back that are natural voters. Thank you.
You know, I'll just add one other piece to that, though, what the senator's saying here, right? It's just as much, though, about listening to folks, right? And I give that nuance there, and I know, it's that nuance because I think that we're seeing that drop off. We're seeing that what we call apathy. We're seeing that because oftentimes folks say, hey, you've already told me what I got to do. You already told me what my choices are. You already told me who it's going to be. But now get out there and put up that lawn sign. Get out there and tell somebody to get out and remember to vote. Get out there and talk to folks about why they should be excited. We need to listen to folks and say, we're fighting for the issues that you are saying are important to you. We're fighting for you because we are you. We believe in you. This is who our values are, right? And I just think that it matters who that messenger is. It matters who that lived experience is for that person, right? And that's what I'm going to be doing. Because it's not talking about an issue that's maybe more conservative or progressive, or oftentimes not even Democrat or Republican. It's about fighting to make folks' lives easier, right? And when I said right from go, we're talking about housing, we're talking about healthcare, quality early education, childcare, affordability in terms of seniors being able to stay in our communities, right? These are issues affecting every single person. Every single person. And I think it's okay, though, to understand that even with all that, we can address the backdrop, right? I was just down in D.C. for Linda McMahon's hearings, right? And you hear my voice out in the rain and cold down there and at rallies and at those protests. They are happening, right? But I also understand that we can live into those values. We can live into that and say we are going to resist. We are going to fight back. We're going to stand up for every single student, every single person in the state. We're going to make sure that we're fighting to make sure that we're pushing back against what's coming at us. We're going to create our contingency plans and get Attorney General to fight and sue and do all those things. But it is also still remembering we're also going to be laser focused on making your life better. Making your life better because I've been listening to you, because I am one of you, because it makes a difference in my life and it'll make a difference in yours. When we're sharing that, when they truly understand, the public at large, that that's who we're fighting for you, that's when we win. That's when folks come out and vote. That's how we win in November.
So I guess I'm going to somewhat finish where I started and talked about when I met Mikey Sherrill and when it was a time that we needed to flip the Congress, and when she stepped into a district that was maybe purple, but God knows more red than anything, against one of the most powerful people in Washington. She went on that mission as she was trained to do, and she won. And let's talk a little history. It's been since 1950, since there's been 8 years of one party, and then that's continued. So history's against us. Now our secret weapon is sitting in the White House right now, as we get to November, which will be here by the time we blink. I think it's 2017 all over again in 2025. I think Mikey, based upon that resume that we talked through before, a lifetime of service that started from the time she was 18, a mother, someone with no pretenses, just someone that's likable and is electable, is our best chance to make certain that the governor of New Jersey will be a bulwark against the terrible things going on to our country otherwise, to make us a part of the solution.
I couldn't disagree more, and I'm gonna tell you kind of a little bit of a more candid perspective. I'm gonna talk to you like your regular people here. If I were to ask 100 people in this room why Kamala lost last November, you get 100 different answers. But I'll tell you what I think. Okay, I think because if you talk about issues, whether it's Gaza or the trans issue or energy or healthcare, she was all over the map. And as a core supporter, it was hard to defend at times because it's even confusing for me where she is. And so when you don't have core beliefs that the public believes that you actually believe in, it's hard to motivate them to come out, okay? I'll go back and say that if you look at somebody's resume and you nominate somebody based on a resume and it is a Republican light, you will guarantee a loss in November. Because you need to give somebody a reason to come out and be motivated. I would tell you on this immigration issue, okay? Immigrant Trust Act, of course I'm a supporter. In 2014, we founded an immigration office in Jersey City that's the only nationally accredited immigration office in the country. We've been at the forefront of the Afghanistan refugees, we've been at the forefront of the Ukrainian refugees because my family is immigrants, so I believe it. On the trans issue, you know, in 2018, when nobody was thinking about it, there was one municipality that said, you know, we're going to extend coverage to these people because we have 3 employees because we're going to see them for where they are, and it's important to do. Because it's who I am, and I have a track record on this. When I started off on this campaign, I said I am going to be detailed on policy, I'm going to tell you what I think clearly. You may not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you because I'm going to treat people like adults and tell you that if you work for me, and you work with me, you will have a reason to come out because you know what I stand for. I believe that that is the core mission of this campaign. And if you deviate from that, nobody's coming out, and you will hand this over to the Republicans this November.
Listen, I'm going to stand up for this. I actually believe if I'm not the nominee, we lose. This is what I believe. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't have to tell people that I'm a progressive. They already know. When you look people in the eye and tell them that you represent them, they have to actually believe you. They have to believe you because they know you fought for them, because they know your history, because they know that you stood in those streets and that you fought for them all of this time, right? They have to know that. They can't think that just because there's an election, you magically became a Democrat. That you magically became more progressive because there's an election happening. Now, we have to be able to go to bars in Warren County. We have to be able to go to church basements, barbershops, barbecue huts, places all over the state and talk to people about issues that concern them. We got to talk to working people and get back to our base. It is troublesome to me that we walk around so hopeless and helpless in New Jersey as Democrats. We're always talking about our electability in the state where there's 800,000 more registered Democrats, where there's 900,000 more registered Democrats. We don't have to chase Liz Cheney around the country. We can actually lean into our democratic values and go get our neighbors, hell, not our neighbors, our kids out of the back room and get them to vote. Yeah, I talk big and people say platitudes and I try to inspire hope. Why? Because if you can't inspire people, they're going to stay home. If you can't make people feel good about what's going on, they're going to stay home. If they don't feel like they're going to win, that they have a fighter, that they have a leader, because all boats look good on the shore. It's only when they get in the storm that you realize how good the boat is. We were born and raised in storms in Newark. I have fought through tumultuous times, and you know, and everybody else knows, that when Trump came to the city of Newark, that Newark responded. And when the reporter said, "What, are you afraid that they're going to arrest you?" I said, if they're going to come and arrest me, they better send the right people. Because at the end of the day, we're not standing down in Newark, and we're not going to stand down in the state of New Jersey. You want to win, you got to inspire people to get out of their damn beds and get to the election booth and vote for somebody that's different than the things they've been voting for the last 20, 25 years.
Okay, I don't know how you all are going to top that because that actually wasn't your closing statement. Now you all have to go through and be even more inspiring. So I'll give you a little time to rekindle and we'll start again in reverse order. Senator Sweeney.
Are you kidding me? Mary, you want me to jump up on the table?
Yes, yes, yes.
This is our closing statement, right? I feel that I am absolutely the most qualified person to be the next governor because I use this term, I know where the lights are and the bathrooms are. And you gotta know what you're doing when you're there. I am very proud of the accomplishments that I did as a Democrat. Raising minimum wage with a COLA was not an easy fight, it was a hard fight. Paid family leave was not an easy fight, it was a hard fight, but a fight worth fighting. Marriage equality, I am proud to have supported marriage equality because love is love. It's that simple. Woman's right to choose, we codified in the state of New Jersey. We did that. I am the first candidate, I'm sure everyone up here agrees with me, we need a constitutional amendment to protect a woman's right to choose. So, some people say, that wasn't that hard. Bullshit, it wasn't. Every time you're in Trenton, you have to understand there are forces always looking to stop anything that helps working people. Well, I'm a union iron worker. I live in this world, and I want to bring our people back voting, not just iron workers, blue collar, middle class people back to the Democrat column. Donald Trump came too damn close. And you know, by the way, he said he was going to do all the shit that he's doing, you know that. That's right. He said it. We need to stop him.
That was your attempt. Well, I'm going to stand up here too, so I'll just say this. That's okay. I just want to be able to see the folks in the back too. So, look, I'll say this, and you certainly heard even as I began tonight. I believe this is an opportunity for us to do something differently, right? When you talk about the successes that we want to see around issues tonight, yes, tackling those issues of quality housing that's affordable in every community. Done that work as mayor. Have that plan specifically for what I'll do as governor, and I've shared it with you here tonight. When we talked about addressing the big cost drivers around healthcare, done that at the state level. Want to do it exactly again and expand it so it's covering all of our folks and bringing down those costs. When you talk about somebody who's going to be fighting for quality early education and childcare, there's nobody better to do that than an educator who understands what we need in every single one of our communities. Somebody who's got 2 young kids of my own, paying those costs now and understand the impacts and burdens that puts on so many. And I will say this, I get it. We all sit up here thinking we're the one that can bring forward that message, we're the one that people are going to relate to. But I will say, we have never had an educator that we think we want to have that person be governor. And I think it's a shame because it's an example of while we pat educators on the back and say we love what you do, we somehow think it's weird or different or strange that they want to be in positions making decisions that affect each and every one of us. And the reason I want to be doing that is because I am you. I've fought these fights. I've been in our communities. I've seen what parents are struggling with. I've seen what we all can do together when we partner together as a labor leader. These are the issues that matter to folks, and we can address them. And understanding that it is also going to matter, that we've got somebody who knows how to stand up to a bully. And everybody in this room knows that the #1 target of our last bully, Chris Christie, was educators and education, right? And we stood up. We showed how to organize and mobilize and push back and get things done and protect every single person, every single student that he was coming after, and every single person that we know he tried to vilify. That's going to matter right now. So I say this. I think that, yes, it matters the skills you have. It matters what you've done. And I've done many of these things. But I also know that it matters who you are. And who I am is that immigrant who came here with my parents at a young age. Is that person who chose to go into education. Is that person who said, I'm going to fight for working class folks as a labor leader. Is that person who said, I'm dedicating my career and everything I do to address the issues that are affecting all of us. So I ask for your vote, I ask for your support, because this is our chance to do things differently. This is our chance to make sure we've got somebody fighting for ourselves in this moment. And I hope to be that person, and I hope to be your governor. Thank you very much.
All right. So I'm going to, I'm the shortest here too, so I certainly have to stand stand on the table. You're right, man. I'm better off to do. You know, I was thinking, I told you a little bit about Mikey's history before we got into a lot of the policy issues, and she's just been extraordinary in just 6 short years in Congress. One of the things she did as a naval intelligence officer was that she face-to-face with the Russians, dealing directly with our nuclear treaties and what we had agreed to dismantle. So Steve will tell you, Trenton's a tough place, but it's not that tough relative to what she's been through in her life, let alone landing helicopters on the back of aircraft carriers in the middle of the night and being responsible for 11 others like her. She's a pretty extraordinary person. And as I mentioned to you before, a mom, someone with no pretenses, somebody that you can relate to, somebody that cares. It would have been very easy for her to remain in a very comfortable life, but instead, she stood up for what she believed in when she was 18, when she took that oath to our nation. And she made a difference in Washington. And she will make a difference in Trenton. I've never been prouder to be a Democrat. Number one, I could feel it from all of you. And on this Sunday night, I thought everybody in Princeton went away for long holiday weekends. What's going on? But your enthusiasm and commitment to our values. And never been prouder to be, frankly, with the four gentlemen up here. They're so articulate and so passionate. And our party isn't broken. But the fixing of it's starting now. And it's going to start with us electing a governor in November that stands for our values. So thank you for putting up with me tonight. Blessings to all.
Let me start by saying thank you to the PCDO for putting this together. Thank you, Mia. It really is inspiring, and I'm thankful that you guys took so much time to come out and hear us out. This election is going to be difficult, and I think that we're all good candidates, but all don't have the same opportunity to win and inspire the base. I think that my track record is always the road less traveled, whether it's leaving a high-paying job to enlist in the Marine Corps after 9/11, or was fighting the establishment to become a councilman, and then the entire state establishment to become the mayor of Jersey City and change that place for the better. I've always gone towards those fights, and I think that this moment in time is a multi-front fight, and I talk about it every day. Yes, we see Donald Trump and the Republicans down in Washington, but don't lose sight of the dysfunction that happens here. Last year, you had a ballot design conversation that's at the core of corruption. You've had a senator here who was a boss who took gold bars. You have a boss of South Jersey who was indicted for land deals and enriching himself. And I stand alone in saying we need to reform this and wholesale change to the system. There is a multiple prong fight here. And I think that we need to understand that. You have people here that represent the status quo in every single way. You look at who runs their campaigns, who are the lobbyists around that, who is representing them. It's the same thing that you saw with Oprah, with campaign finance. Those are the problems that you can't lose sight of here in New Jersey. Yes, we got a problem in Washington, and yes, we need to fight that. But I tell you, if you judge somebody by their friends, you should also judge them by their enemies. Who does George Norcross hate? Me. Who does Bob Menendez hate? Me. Who is standing up to Chris Christie during the times in 2017 and 2016? In a different context. And so I tell you that this is a moment in time that is unique. And I think that it's important that we recognize that. So with that, I just want to say again, thank you for coming out and hearing us out. This is an important choice, June 10th. Now I'm going to give it over to my friend, Pastor Roz Baraka.
You should come to the black church, teach you how to speak. Listen, I like all these guys. I honestly do. I like McKeon too, even though he's not running for governor. I actually really do. And the reality is we're all good Democrats, as Mayor Fuller pointed out. And he's not the only one that's been out here fighting against corruption and fighting for reform and democracy. There are other people that have been doing that, and I've been one of those people. I'm glad that Sean talked about being an educator, because I've been an educator for 23 years in public schools, started as a substitute teacher all the way to a principal, so the whole gamut of it. And I'm the mayor of the state's largest city, an executive. And I think now, more than ever, we need an executive. We need somebody that is an executive that actually ran something where the buck stopped with them. And it stopped here with us, as mayors, and particularly me in Newark, if the state has a problem, Newark has it twice. If there's an issue going on in the state, we have it 3 times, more than everybody else. When COVID was a problem, we had more people dying of COVID than any place else. So we were forced to be creative. We're forced to raise people up from the bottom. We're forced to lower healthcare costs. We're forced to build housing. We're forced to create opportunities around education and home ownership for students and their families. We're forced to have a guaranteed education program that sends kids to college for free. We're forced to have a guaranteed income program that gives people opportunity to pay their rent, right? To buy groceries. We're forced to do these things because this is our base. This is who we are. And the reality is there is no multiple New Jerseys. There's only one. 37% of white families in New Jersey with assets are struggling. 52% of African Americans and 51% of Latinos. We have unity around the fact that New Jersey is too damn expensive. We have unity around the fact that there's inequity running through our state. We talked about segregation. Well, segregation is not just a problem for African Americans. Segregation is why your costs are too high in this state. Because we have more municipalities than the state of California, which is 8 times larger than us, because we're stuck on our identity. But what is our identity? Where 45% of the folks in New Jersey identify as non-white or mixed race. Soon, our families will be majority mixed race. I met a woman today in Red Bank who told me, I'm a white lady, but my grandchildren are Dominican. The reality is our families are different, and we need a governor who sees all of us, not a few of us, all of us, and can make policy for all of us. We can't make policy for everyone because they're half of the people in New Jersey we don't even see. If we can't see you, we can't solve your problems. Ras Baraka, governor, Democrat, state of New Jersey.
All right, can we have a standing applause? Appreciation for all of that.
Yeah, it's on my chair, like the chair in there. Oh, yeah. It's